Welcome dear student and Jai Swaminarayan. In this video, we will discuss about a thrust and the pressure. Dear student, we know that when we apply a force on the any body, a pressure is created on the body. So in this video, we will discuss about a effect of the force on the body that is called the pressure. What are the use of the pressure? What are the different effect created on the body when we applying a force on the body, right? It depends on the area, surface area of the body, that all the things we will discuss in this video. So dear student, let us start with what do you mean by the thrust and what do you mean by the pressure. So when we applying a force on the any object, right, the pressure is created on the object, but thrust is the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface of the body, right? So what is the thrust is the force acting on an object perpendicular to the surface of the object. So dear student, when we applying a force on the any body perpendicular to the body, perpendicular to the any surface of the body, the force is called the thrust, right? So the thrust is the one type of the force acting on a object perpendicular to the surface, right? For example, when you stand on a loose sand, the force, or we can say that the weight of the your body is acting on an area equal to the area of the feet, right? So when you stand on the surface of the sand, right, the force, that is the weight of our body, right, is acting on an area equal to the area of your feet. But when you lie down, the same force act on the area equal to the contact area of the whole body. So because if we lie on the surface of the sand, right, the same force is acting on the sand, or which is on the area of the whole body. So in the both the case, force acting on the sand is the same. So we can say that the thrust acting on the sand is a same, right? So when you stand on the surface of the earth, the force of the gravitation, that is called the weight force, is acting in the downward direction perpendicular to the surface. And when you lie down, right, the same force is acting, but the contact area is a different. So to understand the thrust or more detail on the force acting on the surface area, we need to calculate the surface area on which the force is acting, right? So that we will define with the help of the pressure. So dear student, what do you mean by the pressure? The pressure is a thrust acting on a unit area of the surface, or we can say that the force acting on the unit area of the surface, because the thrust is a one type of the force perpendicular to the surface of the object, and here the pressure is the thrust acting on the surface per unit area. So we can say that the pressure is equal to thrust divided by area, or we can say that the thrust is equal to the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface. So we can also define the pressure is equal to force divided by area. So here the effect of the force on the loose sand is larger while standing, right, while you are standing on the sand, the surface area when the force is exerted by your body is only up to limited up to your feet, right? So here the area is small, so you can say that the pressure created on the surface is large while you are standing, but while you are lying down, the contact surface area between your body and the sand is larger. So you can say that the effect of the force is smaller, right? So effect of the thrust on the loose sand is larger while standing. While standing, the contact area is limited up to your feet, right? So the contact area is a less. So you can say that the pressure is a more, or we can say that the effect of the thrust is a more. But while you are lying down, right, the contact area is a more, so the effect of the thrust is a less. So dear student, the effect of the thrust or the effect of the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface depends on the contact area. It is inversely depends on the surface area. If the surface area, contact area is a small, the effect of the thrust is a larger, and if the contact area is a larger, the effect of the thrust is a smaller. So here from that, the pressure is defined as the force acting on the unit area of the surface. So the formula of the pressure is equal to thrust divided by area, or we can say that the force divided by area. So from this formula, the SI unit of the thrust is a Newton, right? So from the SI unit of the thrust is a force. So SI unit of the thrust is a Newton, and the unit of the area is a meter square. So the here the SI unit of the pressure is a Newton per meter square, or we can write a Newton meter raised to minus 2. So by the name of the scientist Pascal, the unit of the pressure is also a Pascal. So dear student, understand about a thrust and the pressure. Thrust is the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface, and the pressure is the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface per unit area, right? So discuss, let us understand more about a thrust and the pressure with the help of the activity, right? So if we considering a situation 1, you wish to fix a poster on a bulletin board as shown in the figure. Like this, if you want to fix a one poster on the bulletin board, right, like this. To do this task, you will have to press the drawing pin with your thumb, right? Required to apply a force on the drawing pin. Now here the drawing pin, you apply a force on the surface area of the head of the pin, right? This force is directly perpendicular to the surface area of the board, and this force act on the smaller area at the tip of the pin. So here we apply a force perpendicular to the surface area of the head of the pin. Our head of the pin has a larger area, so it creates the small effect of the force, small effect of the thrust, but the tip of the pin, right, has a smaller area, right? So the effect of this same thrust on the smaller area is a larger, and so the pin can move deeply into the drawing board. Similarly, if you considering a tip of the nail, right, tip of the pin, edge of the knife is a sharper. So why? Because the effect of the force we create a more as the area of the contact area is a smaller. If the force act on the smaller contact area at the tip of the pin, बराबर edge of the knife, right, we get the more effect, we get the more pressure. So here the pressure created on the tip of the pin is a more compared to the pressure created on the head of the pin, right? So understand this situation. So dear student, now we will see the another situation to understand more about a thrust and the pressure. Situation number 2. You stand on the loose sand. Your feet go deep into the sand. Now lie down on the sand. You will find that your body will not go that deep in the sand. So dear student, here when you stand on the surface of the loose sand, your feet go deep into the sand. But while you are lie down on the sand, you will find that your body will not go deep into the sand. Why? Because in the both the case, the force acting perpendicular to the surface is the weight of your body, right? So in the both the case, the force exerted on the sand is the weight of your body, but the effect of this force is the different on the sand. So you have learned that the weight is the force acting vertically downward direction. What is the direction of the weight force? The direction of the weight force is always in the downward direction. So here the force acting perpendicular to the surface of the sand, right, and the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface of the sand is called the thrust. So in the both the case, the weight force acting on the surface of the sand are same. So what is the thrust? The thrust is the force acting on an object perpendicular to the surface is the thrust, right? So dear student, when you stand on the loose sand, the force, that is the weight of the your body, is acting on an area equal to the area of feet, right? So in which area, how much area the force acting when you stand on the loose sand, right? So when you stand on the loose sand, the force acting perpendicular to the surface is acting on the area equal to the area of your feet. But when you lie down, the same force act on the area equal to the contact area of your whole body, right? So in the both the situation, the thrust is same, the force acting on the perpendicular to the surface of the sand is same, but the area of contact is a different. When you stand, the area is a small, and when you lie down, the area, contact area of the your whole body is a large. So which is the larger than the area of your feet? So thus the effect of the force of the same magnitude on the different area are the different, right? So here the effect of the force, when we applying a force on the object having a different area, is the effect of the force is a different. So in the above case, the thrust is the same, but the effect of the thrust or effect of the force is a different. So therefore the effect of the thrust depends on the area on which it acts, right? So the effect of the force is called the pressure. So the effect of the thrust on the sand is larger while standing than while lying. Why? Because when we are standing, the surface area is a small, contact area is a smaller, so the effect of the thrust is a larger, right? And when we lying down on the surface, the area of the contact is a larger compared to the while you are standing, so the effect of the thrust is a more. So thrust on a unit area is called the pressure, or we can say that the force acting on the surface perpendicular to the surface per unit area is called the pressure. So the pressure is equal to thrust divided by area, right? So here when you are standing position, the contact area is equal to the area of your feet, so it is a smaller. So we can say that the pressure exerted on the surface of the sand is a larger, right? When you lying down, the contact area of the sand and your body is a larger, so you can say that the pressure on the sand is a larger, right? So the same force acting on the smaller area exerts a larger pressure, and the smaller pressure on the larger area, right? So this is the reason why the nail has a pointed tip, right? Nail has a pointed tip. So when we applying a force on the head of the pointed tip, right, pointed nail, right, it creates the more effect on the pointed tip. Knife have a sharp edge, buildings have a wide foundation, right? So due to this, the when we applying the same force acting on the smaller area, it creates a more pressure, right? And that's why the nail has a pointed tips. So when we applying a force on the head of the nail, right, at the other pointed tip, it creates the larger pressure, right? And due to this, the pointed tip nail go deep into the object, right? Knife have a sharper edge, right? Buildings have a wide foundation. These all are the example of the pressure, right? So dear student, here the important point is the thrust. What is the thrust and the what is the pressure? Thrust is the force perpendicular to the area, perpendicular to the surface of the, perpendicular to the surface, right? But the pressure is the force, or we can say that the effect of the force, that is the thrust acting on the unit area, right? So thrust is the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface, and the pressure is the force acting on the object perpendicular to the surface per unit area, right? So dear student, I hope that you understand about what do you mean by the thrust and the what do you mean by the pressure. Thank you very much for watching my video.